Okay. Well, how you doing? Yeah, I mean, so drinks have started apparently. Can we order drinks up here, or is that like a problem? Okay. Well, the panel is loaded in the title. I think it's called "Life in the Metaverse," which is going to be an interesting topic. But I think easiest thing, given that we're all going to be talking to ourselves, is just allow everyone to introduce themselves. Kicking off with Justin.
Yeah, hi. I'm Justin Edwards. I'm the CEO of Digital. Been in the sort of virtual world space for maybe nearly 20 years, I'd say. Started really in MMORPGs, making virtual worlds, particularly with a product called RuneScape. Also worked on a mobile metaverse called Abacan Life before joining Decentraland and being part of that era, and now I'm at Verse Digital. We're building sort of virtual worlds and supporting brands in entering this space.
Hi, I'm Lucas Perraudin. So I'm one of the founders of a company that's called Mula Digital. What we do mainly now is helping big corporations understanding if they have to go to market in social, in messaging apps, in AR, VR, in the metaverse, what do they have to do and how do they have to transform themselves? Prior to doing that, I ran Facebook Reality Labs, EMEA, for 4 years, so working on Zook's version of the Metaverse, which was an interesting one, and 25 years in tech, all in, so yeah, many versions of cycles. I'm probably the oldest person in the room, also close to.
I'm pretty sure I am.
Yeah, maybe, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Jane Thomason. I'm one of the founders of the World Metaverse Council, and I'm all about Metaverse and Web3, but particularly how it's got social utility, how we're going to use it, how we're going to engage with it. I just wrote a book on it, I speak a lot on it, and I'm really happy to be here.
Come on. I didn't actually know there was a World Metaverse Council, which is blessed. I love that. My name's Jake, based in London. But got here thanks to Lizzie Line, which is exceptional. So I'm very, very happy with that. But clearly not from London, so I was further north for most of my time. But my world is all around building equity. So I've kind of worked across a few different industries, either with founders, starting businesses, either consulting with different brands to ultimately look at. Clearly we all need to make cash, which is a thing that everyone tends to avoid and tries to dress it up with niceties. But also how do we look at equity from a societal lens and look at the imbalances and try and actively address it. And all the people here in these places have, ultimately all a brand is for an individual or an organization is trust. It's a storage mechanism for trust. And so therefore there's a responsibility we all have in terms of how we effectively be intentional with the things we do, and that has an impact on a lot of other issues outside of our core motivations. So yeah, so I think, look, this is an interesting panel, to say the least, especially now. So I think what would be very helpful for me included, and Jane, you're probably best to kick this off, just in terms of what, like now, where we are, what is a metaverse, and like what are all the things that come with it?
Okay, so the first thing is it's not a thing. And it's going to be many of these things, and it's an idea, it's a concept, there's no specific definition. But I think it's really important, the way I look at it is to characterise it in this way. We've got over 600 companies building metaverse and metaverse experiences. The first group are the big techs, you know, Apple, Facebook, Meta, and Mark Zuckerberg announced the metaverse and then denounced the metaverse, and we can probably talk about that. So they're all building these immersive experiences. Then you've got the gaming companies who've really had these immersive metaverse-like experiences for a long time, and who are deepening them and adding other affordances and so forth. We now have governments like Saudi Arabia, NEOM, billion-dollar metaverse, Seoul in Korea announcing that it's putting all of its citizen services in the metaverse. So governments are embracing this, and sectors like health and education. And then we have we're very fond of our Web3 metaverse, the open metaverse, and we hope and we pray that that's going to be the nature of the metaverse of the future. But it's immersive, it's always on. We think in Web3 that it's going to be underpinned by blockchain with NFTs and decentralized finance and decentralized cloud and decentralized communities. How that all plays out, we don't yet know, but it's super experimental and super interesting.
And I guess because I think initially, I mean, the whole of Web3 and Metaverse included has a branding problem, right? I think my world has been mostly looking at it from a music lens initially to start with, because music for me was a great way of music brings everybody together, which is good. You've got a good platform to try and talk about tech, but also seeing the people that were very at the forefront of the music space. Everybody wanted virtual shows, which nobody wanted, to be clear. People wanted to look at how we would use blockchain for metadata and all these different things. But the same thesis kept going. Everyone was focused on the tech. Everyone was focused on whatever thing they were building, and there was no real application to anyone else. And so I think clearly, Justin, you had a very successful first Metaverse, one of the first ones I heard about, Decentraland. What was your take on it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, there's really, in terms of its use case, it reaches so many different areas, so many different industries, so many different worlds, and we've built music festivals, and I think that all took off during lockdown to a certain extent when we couldn't go to them. So we were hosting a lot of concerts in our metaverse, but we were working with banks and integrating them for branding purposes, entertainment companies. Sports companies, hosting the first Metaverse Super Bowl, worked with Miller Lite with that, which was a fun project. But it's there for everybody and anything to get involved with, and I think generally it's been a lot of fun.
Is it? I mean, is it always? Because the thing I always challenge with when you hear Metaverse, what. The thought that came to everyone's mind was the Travis Scott in Fortnite moment. Everyone was kind of looking at the gaming world. Initially, that was the kind of energy. But Jane, the way you were describing is kind of Metaverse clearly as being conceptual, really is kind of any sort of digital touch point? Because was Clubhouse within a Metaverse framework, for instance? Or Lucas, you raise your eyebrows.
Looks like he wants to answer that.
No, I mean, and once again, I started working on the Metaverse in, 2016, 2017, and when 2023, I still don't know what the Metaverse is, and I was pretty deep into it. So I think the issue with the Metaverse is it's loaded with everyone's dream. Everyone puts behind that word what he or she wants to hear or be behind it. And then Web3 only came later. It only came when when there was a lot of Metaverse buzz, and probably Web3 just hopped on the back of the Metaverse buzz to have more buzz. But now it's become a trap. The interesting thing is the Metaverse is a concept, it's not a thing. We just say that. Web3 is a concept, it's not a thing. So Web3 Metaverse is a concept on a concept. None of this is a thing. And that's a big problem when you're a person like me and what you're trying to do is business. One thing I can tell you is there will be a version of the Metaverse, or maybe it won't be a Metaverse, but the Facebook definition or Meta definition of the Metaverse does not work with Web3. We talked about billions. Zook is throwing 12 to 15 billions every year at his dream of what the Metaverse is, which is an immersive digital experience that feels like reality but isn't reality and can defy distance. That's what we were working on, defying distance. You can be with anyone, anywhere. You can be anyone you like and feel like it's real. They are not doing this so that it's decentralized and it belongs to its users. They're doing this so that they have advertising signals and they can monetize it. So this metaverse is working against the Web3 metaverse. This I am 100% sure about. So you'll have to choose which one you want at some point. There's a fork here that people have to make choices.
But it's interesting because I think I've always found these things fascinating. Say you take the topic of representation, which is a different issue more broadly, right? The reason why that is important is that we, as people, we both consciously and subconsciously recreate what we can see. And that's the thing that children do. It's a very sort of natural behavior. You can go through any sort of statistic and you can see that. And so therefore there's an obligation from people like Zuckerberg, etc., to be clear on the different sort of variants that this can take place as. Because I think if we only have it as this immersive space, like in music, for instance, you could speak to any artist, nobody wanted to do a virtual show. Like nobody wanted to do it. At the moment they got paid for it at the time, but there was no application whatsoever. There was no tie-in to, if you look at it in the concept of, I mean, we'll go into stats, but like Kanye changed the stage design, right? It used to be one side over here, fans over here. He changed it down the middle. The whole world changed. Everyone started changing the show. You sold more tickets, linked to revenue. There was a reason for it. You changed people's experience. The virtuals thing came out of like a virtual component of that should be added on to create another ring of revenue and more people can see if you can't attend, really logical things. But when it was done in terms of that sort of immersive world capacity, I think a lot of people genuinely believed that people just wanted immersive virtual shows because people were talking about it to such a degree saying this is what it is. So it's like how, and again, like you've said, there's no link of Metaverse and Web3. Like, how do we make some of this practical? How do we like take it so it's not a use case that lasts for a short amount of time and actually everybody starts to participate?
So, go ahead, I'll go second.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say my thoughts on that are, you know, how does it stick around? How does it stay? How does it have that longevity? It really comes down to the audience size. You know, you mentioned Fortnite, and you know the reason why artists do want to play in Fortnite is because of its huge global audience. And so, you know, when you think about the other metaverses, they don't have that necessarily have that sort of size audience unless you're sort of Roblox or Fortnite. And I think the lesson that we've learned in terms of the open, decentralized metaverses is that the thing that is the glue with those products is gamification. And so, you know, you hear stories about going into metaverses and there not being anything to do there, or, you know, there was an art gallery, but, you know, once you've seen it once, you don't need to see it again. And so if you can layer these metaverses with a layer of gamification that brings with it, you know, engagement for players, retention for players, you can start to grow your audience. And, you know, once you've started to grow that, the audience size, the longevity's there, and you've got then brands that all of a sudden are interested in coming into your metaverse.
Yeah, I really wanted to talk a little bit about health and education and things like government services, because we're kind of coming at it from an entertainment and gaming point of view. But I see, and real use cases now, I particularly follow healthcare because I worked in healthcare for a lot of my life. And we're seeing, first of all, how it can extend with AI, extend the work of a very pressed clinical workforce who can't cope with what they need to do. So, for example, avatars are going to be able to do a certain amount of triage, you know, linked with wearables and so forth. And then we've got scientific collaboration where people used to fly once a year and go to WHO in Geneva for a week and then go home again. People are going to be able to sit together in these immersive spaces with digital twins of hospitals or new surgical techniques or something like that, and continuously work on these things. You've got education of medical students. And medical students used to cut up dead bodies and frogs. They don't need to do that anymore because they can go inside a 360-degree human body and see how everything connects and how it works. We can teach surgery without killing people. And we can incentivize people to do exercise and stop eating so much. So there's so many applications. And then plus old people and disabled people who can't leave their homes can get services, you know, using something like this. So I just want to kind of put into your mind, and I haven't even started talking about education, which I think is going to be totally disrupted and improved with the opportunity for this kind of immersive metaverse education. So there's lots of things outside of being entertained that people are already doing and we already have really serious use cases of.
No, so I've always used entertainment just because I think it's an easy way to kind of like segue into a lot of social bits and pieces. But again, looking at like a world, leave the Western world for a second. there's some logistical challenges to these like 360 education environments, right? So like 2/3 of the world's youth have no access to working internet connection, for one. So there's some challenges where we have to like address those things and be clear on it. But the education thing makes a lot of sense. I think like to be used as a tool where people can upskill, definitely in terms of that wouldn't normally have access to facilities that we would need to travel and take the Lizzie line to get to, etc. Like that makes a lot of sense. But that is a slight variant to I think the initial branding of what a metaverse was, which was these like sandbox, Decentraland, Fortnite type spaces where people just roaming around for just vibes. So it's like, so I think like those things for me I think is a much better way of positioning it move forward as a personal opinion, just because then at least it's tied to something tangibly usable. But yeah.
Yeah, so L&D, so learning and development in immersive environments, is the one use case that is actually currently a business that's profitable and works. So, and we rolled out training to 10,000 Walmart warehouse employees, and then they reduced by 25% the accidents because they were trained in VR, and they were not sat in a room looking at their phone while they were getting the instructions. They were immersed into it. So their retention of information was much better, and their understanding of tasks was much better. So that works. I don't know that this is a metaverse though. It's immersion. Is it a metaverse? That's the whole question. And so there's this whole thing, it works, then there will be several metaverses or sub-metaverses, but it's not universal, it's focused, it's deep and narrow in terms of focus, and that works really well. The decentralized part, the whole theory is because it's decentralized, creators will get a better reward for their content, hence they'll spend more time in there. And it's kind of, if you build it, they will come. If all the creators are there and they create great content, then the crowds are going to come. And if the crowds are coming, then there will be more creators, and then you have a flywheel effect of these two-sided platforms. So that was the whole thing. And I can tell you one thing from inside. Facebook was shit scared about this. That's why you saw at some point you could share your NFTs on Instagram, which is gone now, but you could get these badges and everything. And they started talking about marketplaces for creators and sharing a bit more the revenue to avoid the exodus to these platforms. I think this ship has sailed right now. Like, it's going to be hard to do another round of this, but that's just, once again, I've seen so many cycles, and the older you get, at least the older I get, the more pessimistic I get about it. So it's going to be hard to get back to there. But that's the entertainment on one side, and then what you mentioned around education. The thing is, how do these two concepts go in the same room consistently at the same time? I don't have the answer to that. They're very different things for me.
Yeah, because I guess, Justin, I want to lean on you a little bit now. Because Roblox makes cash, right? Let's be clear on that. Like, clearly makes a shit ton of money. But the gaming world's a very closed infrastructure. They have no need to be decentralized to a degree. They have no incentive to do it either. But there's clearly been, and I saw even things like around Lego and different things. There've been scenarios where it's been successful to test things, but again, we're going to come back to whether it is a metaverse, whether it isn't. What does that eventually be known as? And Justin, do you have any thoughts on some of the use cases?
Yeah. Well, I suppose one of the things is that we have seen is that giving the power to the player, so whether that be a DAO organization or allowing the community of a game to be able to make decisions on the product roadmap and feel more immersive in part of the actual strategy for the game that they love, certainly increases the engagement and the loyalty to that player base. So in terms of a decentralized metaverse, that's one of its kind of superpowers, is the fact that it's governed and owned by its player base. The decision making lies with them. Challenge is,
societally, we're idiotic at times, which was also something that's alarming. It was funny. There was I was at we were just chatting before at Zazalu, which was Vitalik's get together. They took over in Montenegro for 3 months, and longevity, AI, network states, and it was interesting because There were a couple of like sensitive issues that arose. One, you had all of the big names in these rooms, and one of the guys, Lance, who is probably the poster boy for zero knowledge proof blockchain, stood up and was like, I'm surrounded by all these amazing people and there is no love in the room, which was like, it was the best thing that got said the entire time, which is interesting. And then there was another side topic, and look, predominantly the room was white, being clear, right? And there was a thing that got raised, was like technology has no race, again said by a white person. And it was like this challenge where those communities that we were putting the responsibility on, or these people in various different sectors, were potentially the wrong people to be doing it. So although they had the technical prowess and the expertise to be on the front line and to be doing whatever they were doing, they were effectively, which they couldn't see, creating a mirror, which ultimately was a problem. So when we got onto the AI lens, which we could go down a very negative track, which we're not going to do, it was this thing where actually, are we equipped yet to have that governance? So
it's one of the scary things. The people working on Web3 want Web3 to work. The people working on AI want AI to work. And if you hear Yann Lequin, which is one of the greatest AI scientists in the world, it's hard because he's so smart, but when he talks, you really see that he wants it to work no matter what. And there's a lack of distance with what it can do, or is really undermining the negative aspects of it. So you're absolutely right. It's the same thing. The people who build it are not the right people to regulate it or to decide how pervasive any tech can be. That's in the hands of other people.
So how do we do that? Because this is the other thing. Because it's all relative, isn't it? The other side of AI was the only way that an AI can become wise is to completely fuck up. Was basically it. So then we go, oh shit, that was clearly wrong. Let's try this again. So again, like where do we go from here, like, in terms of making sure, and Jane, back to you, like in terms of making sure that the right people are in the room to guide what has been a sort of, where this next phase of Metaverse goes into something that has real sort of like positive value for everyone?
Look, I think the honest truth is we can't. But let me talk to you about our concept behind the World Metaverse Council, because it was really around this issue. So we were about a year ago at a Metaverse conference in Slovenia, of all places, but talking about this, like no one knows about it. There's some risks with it. Who's going to be dealing with those? How do they even know what they are? How do we deal with children in the metaverse? And so some bright spark said, let's set up a World Metaverse Council. And so we did that. We had a declaration and it was really great. And then we went out looking for members. But that's where it got really interesting, because we said, well, we'll get a first 100 foundation members. We got them in less than a week. And then we put it out for people to join up. So we've now got thousands of members from 120 countries. But I want to come back to your point about kind of exclusion as well, because a lot of these people from India and Pakistan and Vietnam, and a lot of the countries in Africa, and they really see this as an opportunity. And if we take away from what is a metaverse, and to be honest with you, I don't care that much. It's got an immersive element, and it allows people to do certain things, and they can engage in certain ways. But I think what we're seeing people are working on in India and Pakistan and Asia, they're not going to have headsets. They know they can't have headsets for 1 billion people. So they're going to work on either internet-enabled, tablet-enabled, or even mobile-enabled experiences that bring things to people that are of value to them. And so what we've found with this group that we've got on the metaverse, if we've got this global distributed network of thinkers who are sharing what they're doing all around the world and learning for each other. And I know, you both work for kind of big companies that do big things. These are little people who are doing little things, but collaborating to solve problems all around the world. And that's the beauty of it. And no one's got the answer. But back to your regulation point, none of us are getting at the regulation table. But the regulators now, one thing you might not know about in relation to digital assets is the Commonwealth Ministers of Law met last November, and they've actually given the Commonwealth Secretariat the job of developing a common legal framework for digital assets for Commonwealth countries, which is going to be probably completed by the end of this year. So there's all sorts of things going on. They have to engage with industry, but the regulators are going to try and keep their job as regulators, and they're not going to open it up to Vitalik and his friends in a mansion somewhere.
I mean, it's interesting. I guess, like, because I again, slightly different tactically they do this. I am very against the diversity, equity, and inclusion roles and consultants. I've never fucked with it at all. I think it's a terrible idea. It's the same as corporate social responsibility. It's basically like, okay, cool, 20% of our customers are black. We should probably have someone that thinks about this internally and externally so we don't fuck up. So it's about making money. Corporate social responsibility, we make a lot of money, we should probably do something positive. It's kind of like an afterthought all the time. And so with that in mind, if the intentionality behind these things is not there from the outset, can we change it by putting additional frameworks around it after it's been moving for a long way? So, for instance, a lot of people in these environments, everybody, it's about cash. A lot of the times, people are trying to make money. They're trying to be there for that next wave where it's all about money. My experience in crypto, I launched a token last year as like a Google to mess around to give money away. So there was one about making money, we just gave away to music creators. And the behaviors I saw from people in Telegram and different things was so insane based on the fact that money was the driver. But instead of seeing it on social media platforms, you see it such in real time. Everyone's just looking for cash. And so regardless of in that point, we've put someone to establish frameworks, which I think is important. Like how do we change some of the results? Because I think a lot of the times, again, it's the wise AI moment. We've run into a problem and then gone, we should probably get a framework in. Like I feel like there's got to be better ways where we can try and stitch this all a bit together in a bit of better way.
Well, Web3 is an ideology, not a business. That's the fundamental problem. If you want to decentralize, then you destroy corporate value. And so you're asking corporations to build it and self-destruct. It's not very realistic.
Well, I think this is because where Bitcoin came from, this was the libertarians and the anarchists, and this was after the global financial crisis and so forth. There's been a lot of movement since then. You know, there's still a few of them left, and we all know a few Bitcoin maxis, but the reality is that more people have kind of moved to somewhere in the centre where they're thinking about how these things can have utility. I mean, you know, I was involved in the launch of HippoCoin, so I know that was just complete rubbish, and it was just trying to pump up a token so everyone could make some money, but I did it to learn. But you know, that's not what we should be talking about. We're talking about an amazing technology with incredible potential for humankind, and we want to learn how to get the best out of it and to protect people from the harms. So all the HippoCoin guys over there, they're not trying to do anything except make money, and we should kind of put a ruler there and say, you want to do that, you're gambling, fine, good luck. But over here's some serious technology that we can build that's useful. And then to your point, we need to think right from the beginning about the ethics in the technology, but there's a challenge with that because engineers and technologists, they don't know anything about ethics. They'd probably be willing to think about it when building if they knew about it. So actually getting some of those thoughts into the technology stack, into the applications, thinking about the consequences for people, I agree with you, should be done early, but can't be done unless we help envision people about what that means and where the dangers are.
No, that's great. I mean, look, the main point of that is that we need to be very mindful of who's in the room at all times, because they're very exclusionary by nature, especially in terms of how you look at the Bitcoin. Anyone that was most people I know that was buying Bitcoin in 2011, there was a certain category of people maybe that have been exposed to whatever that profited the most, and then I think we've just sort of tried to figure it out since. I think, I don't know what time we're supposed to wrap up, but to move forward on a positive note, sorry, Justin. Where do you think the sort of the more sort of fun parts of this? Like, where's the sort of positive progression for the next few years?
I guess from my side of things, it's more from the sort of entertainment and the gaming space, and I think the Web3 technology adds a positive layer to gaming, and it's still in its infancy, and you know, as we've talked about, has some things that need to be ironed out. But generally, I think the idea of a play-to-earn mechanic where your product's running on a cryptocurrency, so that's moving away from the sort of pump and dump sort of crypto projects, but building using crypto as a currency rather than a virtual currency, I think has benefits for its players, and that you can actually earn from the experience. So I think there's a lot of good things that are coming out of it as well as bad.
No, Lucas?
Yeah, so I'm with you. Entertainment, content consumption, immersion. If you're talking 3 to 5 years, that's the few things that are going to work, and we'll have to wear headsets and HMDs, head-mounted displays, to make this work. But they'll get cheaper, smaller, more resolution, and people will start adopting it. On the Web3 side of things, I don't know. Listen, I'm trying to find a use case that has legs in the business world, not in this institutional world. I think the institutions need to take this matter into their hands. I don't believe they will. I think they're not 3 years behind, they're 10 years behind in what they're solving for. They're still solving for internet, so it's going to be hard. So Web3, I don't know.
But I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going for health and education still. And in significant parts of the world, health and education are private, they're commercial, they're businesses. And so people are looking at how to use this within their businesses, whether it's for education or whether it's, like, you think about non-communicable diseases. We are causing a huge burden on the health system by being fat and drinking too much and not doing any exercise. We can save money for the system. We can make a commercial proposition around incentivising people to change their behaviours and allow them to go, you know, Genopets is one. It's a bit like Axie. You have a pet. It only grows and multiplies and does exceptional things if you do exercise. So we're seeing a lot of these things. So I'm going to say we're going to be using Web3 and gamification to get people to do things that have both a social and commercial benefit.
Oh, I think that's the Genopets. The only challenge with this is, like, on the health and education. I'll finish. So say when you, again, this is where, like, you've got to look at the people in the room, which I think is really, really important. So there was the guy, one of the guys who was a lead coder on Ethereum early on. He still walks away with a lot of money, but Stefan Tool, what it was called. He went into genome sequencing afterwards and left. Now, genome sequencing is interesting because, like, obviously the drug industry is basically built for white males, because females, childbearing age, and white males still just the way it went. So now they're trying to go and get data that isn't white males, right? Which is another thing. So they've made a commercial model to go and get people to sell their data, which I find super alarming for a private business. So they're now acquiring everybody's data in the sort of the flag to, I don't know, to find cures for cancer and. But how should that data be held by a private company of two white guys that made some cash?
Well, it shouldn't. But I mean, health data marketplaces are becoming a thing, where people are going to be able to sell their data into the marketplace in a de-identified way, and it's going to be able to be used, and they are going to get remunerated every time their data is used. So that's already developing. The question of where and how it's held, I mean, obviously, I think it should be decentralised, and that's the way they need to construct them, but you're going to be getting efforts in both ways. So genetic data, there's a company, it's called NGen or something like that, that's creating a decentralised database for genetic data. So people are working on these kinds of things, and I think we're going to see them developing and emerging over the next several years. And health data's a great, we want to monetize our data. If we can monetize our health data, why not? It's our choice.
No, I think as long as we educate people about their choices, then I'm good on that. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, it's permission versus permissionless. So we're moving from permissionless to permission. And permission is not to me, permission blockchain is not Web3. It's not fully decentralized. people get a stamp to be able to validate. So it's going back to Web 2 and more of a validation technology than Web 3, basically.
Dope. I think I'm not even sure on time now. I imagine we should have some questions. If there are any questions for all our loads of people in the room, does anyone have any questions they would like to ask?
And thank you for being here and
Thank
seeing
you.
us through to the end of the day.
It's been emotional. Is there a single question in the room? Yes, there's two. I don't know how this works. Do you want this one? Does that work? That doesn't work. Oh, I can take this.
So my question is really towards Jane. How do you incentivize institutions to implement metaverse technology in education?
Look, I think you're not going to. I mean, but I think this is the same in healthcare. I think that there's too much legacy there, and there's too much tradition and commitment to the way that they've been doing things, and they won't move fast enough. So I think that the metaverse education is going to be developed commercially. I mean, one of the areas that I really believe that metaverse education is going to be incredibly important is in this short, sharp reskilling, because we're moving from a jobs-based economy to a skills-based economy, and as quickly as the jobs that we do start finishing up, we need new skills to do something else. And I think what we're going to see is a whole lot of metaverse courses that allow people to come in and reskill for new jobs, and they're going to be commercial. But I think that what we're going to see is a huge disruption of the traditional education system, for example. They're not going to be fast enough. Very few of them are going to be thinking in this way. And all of the people who are paying them, the parents, are still going to want them to get good grades and go to university, even though, I give you my quote, 60% of the new jobs will not require a university education. So we're in a system that's built for the last 50 years, not the next 50 years. So I think it'll be commercial.
Oh, I can say that. Jane, what is the title of your book?
It's really boring. It's called something like Advancements in the World of Web3, a look at the decentralized future. I don't recommend you buy it because it's really expensive, but if you go on my LinkedIn, I've been doing a little précis of every chapter for the last 10 weeks. I've got 3 to go, so just read that, that's enough. The book is really very expensive.
I've never seen that ever. Do not buy my book.
That's what a decentralization
So
fan
boring.
looks like.
That was either brilliant marketing or that's great. Is there any other question, or are we calling it a day?
No, we're not calling it a day. We have another.
No,
one
as in
last
for us for now. I'll be drinking tequila. Is it?
Appreciate it. Thank you for all the information. It's very useful. I just want to ask you, how do you see Metaverse in the next 10 years? Is it going to be exactly the same as it is right now, or is it going to transform massively? And how, in your opinion, is going to look like, and how it's going to impact the society? I mean, how can we benefit from the Metaverse after all? And what are we going to do with the older generations who are not really in the game?
We tried to do a look.
Sorry, there was 5 questions in one, but well.
No, it's cool. First off, if we fully know, then obviously you should speak to us because we're going to make a shitload of cash. So that's the first part of that. But look, my idealistic sense is that it needs to, especially when looking at going into Africa, for instance, you look at the use cases. You have the talent pool in Ghana and Nigeria and Kenya, and there's so many places where the talent pool is super high, but there's no access to resources, no access to working internet, there's no access to educational tools. There's I do some mentoring with a coding school in Accra, and there's they have started skill sharing. They've started developing plugins, so somebody that's got Blender or somebody's got Photoshop can share. So it's innovation is being born out of the fact that they've got no nothing to, I guess, work with. And that's, you can see that in terms of any sort of people that have been innovative. It's kind of come from a necessity versus anything else. I hope that given the open source energy of a lot of these things, we can start to allow communities to figure this shit out. And I think if in essence, rather than think of it as a visual space, for me, I think the point where it starts to connect people together on a much more sort of deeper level, where they can skill share and ultimately look left and right. I think a lot of the time it's kind of the same as networking, right? It's like people tend to look up versus around them, and I think there's a real. I've gone on a tangent, but like there's a thing. For instance, there's a panel in Ghana, top of the year, Black female founders accessing capital. And the interesting thing is, the moment money was put into the room as the prize, nobody could hear each other speak. Which just found super interesting. So the 5 girls that all won, they all had non-competing businesses, but they all had what each other needed, but they never joined the dots. So if the metaverse in 10 years can start to play a role in doing that, then that's something that I think is a positive. No, you need that one now.
Okay. I was just going to say, for me, I would say, like, who knows, but in 10 years is a long time. But I do think it's obviously very, very early days for the technology from where we are right now. I think AR and VR is going to really play a much bigger role in Metaverse than it is at the moment. And I guess with rose-tinted glasses on, if I had to say 10 years, I'd probably say Ready Player Me, something like that.
I think it needs to get worse before it gets better. The word itself needs to be purged of all this stuff that's been loaded. So it's too loaded. And now when you say the word metaverse, people laugh and you get ironic comments. So you need this to crash so that you can rebuild something that makes sense and center around some kind of meaning that people can really understand, grasp, and anchor around. So that needs to happen. Most likely 10 years from now, more accessible immersive experiences, L&D, like I'm with you, learning and development, great use case, entertainment, gamification, social interactions. That's what I think is going to happen in 10 years, but it is going to take 10 years. It's not going to take 3 or 5. It's probably going to take 10.
I also think stop naming your project something verse. It's not necessary at all. You can just name it whatever. Please go ahead.
And just quickly from me, I love a good digital twin, so I think we're going to be using them for so many things. And I really want my avatar to do clothes shopping for me, so that's my dream.
Thank you very much for our panelists and moderator. Thank you.